390 riders from 28 countries, and the cheer girls are in fine form. Welcome to the traditional Enduro of Enduros, the ISDE, the oldest all-terrain motorcycle race in the world's being held this year in northern Slovakia in the town of Povazska Bystrica. This 80th edition begins with this hard-to-be-ignored opening ceremony. The ISDE has a very Olympic Games feel to it, with the parade of nations, the thousands of riders, mechanics and friends who've come to race for the honour of their federations and countries. For some, it'll be a question of competing for the win. For others, just finishing each day's a victory in itself. The 6 days remains above all else the be-all and end-all of enduro racing.
Prichádza ako prvý tým z Argentíny.
After 1977, 1982 and 1991, Povazska Bystrica is hosting the ISDE for the 4th time. The famous 6 days hasn't made its way back here since the separation of the Czech Republic in 1993. More than 10 years have passed and the town hasn't changed. The 30,000 inhabitants of the town are among the population of 5 million in Slovakia, opening itself to the new Europe. The paddock was installed in the former communist stadium. From this base camp, the riders will set off for 6 days of racing in the local mountains and forests. This region is considered the fiefdom of Slovakian motor racing. It should be said that the region is ideal for an enduro, with the Tatras Mountains peering down from above. This isn't like any countryside found in the United Kingdom. Three titles are up for grabs: individual, team and the most coveted, the trophy awarded to the best nation. Each federation's entered 6 riders, and each day the 5 best results are taken. Using this system, Finland won hands down last year in Poland, and they're here to defend their title in Povazska Bystrica. Also worth keeping an eye on is the junior trophy. In 2004, Spain won before being disqualified for anti-sporting behaviour. They were served with a 1-year suspension. Thus, Finland comes into this year's ISDE as the defending champions in the under-23 division as well. Well, after a week of scouting the course and fine-tuning their machines, the riders can finally set off on the Slovakian course. While the 2004 ISDE in Poland was found to be very easy, in Slovakia the organisers haven't done anyone any favours, because the circuit will be run over the tracks and stages covered in last year's WEC event. Fortunately, the weather is very mild for day one, and the stages were just a little bit slippery after a morning shower that quickly ended and provided some good grip. The excellent conditions is good news for the top riders who can run hard, and it's equally good news for the lesser experienced boys because there are fewer dangers. On the first day, the competitors will compete in 5 specials. At the end of the day, they'll race over a 30-minute timed section. In the trophy, the main event of the ISDE, the major nations are where you'd expect them to be on day one in the lead. Italy, France, Finland and Sweden lead the way. Just behind Great Britain and Australia are in a battle for 5th place. The Aussies have the advantage as they're led by Enduro superstar Stefan Merriman. In the fight amongst the favourites, the Swedes have lost considerable time to their rivals. At the end of day one, the yellow and blue team is already 3 minutes 40 behind the leaders. Despite all of the work put in by Bjorn Karlsson and Rickard Larsson, the team was just a bit devastated by the absence of their charismatic leader Anders Eriksson, the 7-time world champion, suffering serious injuries during the WEC's Grand Prix in Finland.
We talked to him quite a lot before the race, and he wished us all good luck, and Of course, it's quite different to not to have Anders in the team. We always are in the team, but it's just to hope that he is going to get fit again, so we can race in the team next year again.
Sweden are off to a below par start. Finland too were looking for a better beginning to the 6 days. The title holders are already 2 minutes 29 off the pace. Only Marco Takala was able to limit some of the damage in Enduro 3. Samuli Aro started off slow, dropping 40 seconds. Enduro 1 competitor Petteri Silvan was a mere shadow of his regular form after a fall and finished at 1 minute 22 from the best in the small cylinder category. Finland third in the trophy category at the close of day 1. The European countries were clearly the talk of the day, with France and Italy leading the way. Giuliano Falgari had his share of woes in Enduro 2, but in this competition, the weakest performance is not counted. Forza Italia relied on the consistency of their riders, who were regular frontrunners in the World Championship. Led by team leader Simone Albaconi, who we see here, Italy claimed second place in the nation's trophy, 44 seconds behind France. France got off to a lightning-fast start on this 80th edition of the ISDE, and all one has to do is look at the results to understand why. Sébastien Guillaume finished second in Enduro 3. Emmanuel Albapar, who's never competed at the World Championship level, created the biggest surprise in finishing second in Enduro 2, ahead of the likes of Aro and Edmondson. But the most impressive performance was put in by the duo of Marc Germain and Raphael André, who gave France a rare 1-2 in Enduro 1.
Comme souvent, un peu les premiers jours sur terrain vierge.
Well, as is often the case on the first day when the terrain is fresh, the French are at home. As Raphael said, tomorrow things get complicated. What we did today is important. I think we'll have to continue to gain time. Why not go for the overall win? We'll see after 3 or 4 days just how the race is going to go.
Au bout de 3-4 jours, comment la course va se dessiner.
The Junior Trophy is a 4-rider team affair with 3 best results counted towards the standings. In the under 23 division, the same countries are at the top of the order. Italy, with rider Picconi, Michelus, Bernardi and Piavani, took day 1 with a 14-second advantage over France, with a fine crop of the next generation Enduro riders, Julien Gauthier and Sébastien Denis, who each won their respective categories. Northern Europe followed with Finland third and Sweden fourth. Well, this first day was also a busy day for the mechanics and those in charge of the teams. Between the trophies, the juniors and the clubs, it's not an uncommon sight to see as many as 15 riders at the service area at the same time. Thus, pit stops must be extremely well-oiled and very well done.
Oui, ils ont un temps à partir de 15 minutes pour entrer au parc fermé.
Well, they have a very brief 15 minutes to enter the parc fermé and make the repairs. If it takes 2 minutes lost coming in, that leaves just 13 to do the work. So if it isn't organised, if the guy arrives late or he has to push his bike, he loses 3 minutes 30 pushing his bike to the service area. So we have to be organised, otherwise it won't work. Day 2 of the competition, with 4 loops to be run. The equivalent of 1,500 bikes will run over the same terrain. They know that the course will begin to tear up in the stages, and in the corners ruts begin to form. Thus it's up to each rider to change his line. On the torn up sections, some countries get on better than others, and this isn't really France's cup of tea, which worked out nicely for Italy and Finland, In the rutted portions, riders with motocross experience have a clear advantage. At the end of 2 days, one has to look very far down the leaderboard to find countries such as the lone South American nation, Venezuela, which is last, 30 minutes behind. Canada's also struggling here in Slovakia with a 24-minute deficit. Their American cousins are having a better time of it. The US are in a respectable 13th. But the Dutch team's eaten a spot thanks to their orange helmets. Currently 10th, Holland is a cornerstone of the ISDE. For this year's event, they're counting on Pedro Tradka, the 1993 125cc World Motocross Champion, who's an ex-Enduro convert. Here, the best Dutch performance is being put in by Eric Eggens. He was able to run with the World Elite, and he finished 6th in Enduro 1. Six nations stand out with a battle for 5th between Australia and Great Britain. Her Majesty's subjects get the better of the Wallabies once again. One must remember they have a rather mixed lineup behind their 3 stars, David Knight, Paul Edmondson and Ewan McConnell. Despite all of Rickard Larsson's efforts, 4th place between Sweden loses more ground to the top 3 nations. The yellow and blue are now trailing by 5 minutes and 36 seconds. Meanwhile, Finland's stabilising, losing just a handful of seconds. Marco Takala in Enduro 3 and Similiaro in Enduro 2 are not having their best outings, but they are managing to stay in contact with the leaders in dropping as little time as possible. For his part, Petri Pujamo is making a remarkable comeback. Disappointing in the WEC, often injured, he's the most surprised with his results in the ISDE, 2nd in Enduro 2 in a battle with Merriman.
First of all, I don't want to come here because I have still a medal in my hand and I want to go take out this as soon as possible. So, but there was not so many riders and they said to me that it was better to come here, so now I'm here.
The collapse of the day was reserved for France. The French team lost one of their key riders when Raphael André retired after falling and injuring his shoulder. The French boys have lost their one joker and now have no room for error. On day 2, France dropped nearly 2 minutes, dropping out of the lead, the first drama from the 2005 ISDE. Now, of course, all of this was to the benefit of Italy, who moved into the lead with a comfortable margin of 1 minute and 13 seconds. Italy were on top form on day 2, with the highlight being Simone Albagoni's win in Enduro 1.
Dovremmo essere primi anche come squadra, quindi questo
So, well, tonight we should be in the lead of the trophy. It's very positive. The team results are just fantastic. They're even better than the individual ones. So we're going to keep cool. We'll continue to run like this, and then we can see where we're going. And so, after 2 days of riding, Simone Albagoni is also at the head of the Enduro 1 standings and is looking good for an individual title from the 6 days. On his back wheel, 12 seconds behind is Marc Germain, who's doing his best to stay in contact. The 252-stroke 450cc 4-stroke Enduro 2 class is, as usual, being dominated by the Australian Stefan Merriman. But after 2 days of competition, he's built up a 1 minute 6 second advantage over rival Alessandro Bacciuri. In the heavyweight Enduro 3 division, David Knight continues to prove he's the man to beat with a 1 minute 18 margin from Marco Takala. Well, as is the case in the Nations Trophy, in the junior category, France lost precious time to Italy. The Tullio Pellegrinelli-led team are demonstrating impressive consistency in the early days of the ISDE. Italy leads France with a gap of 1 minute and 18 seconds. The other junior teams have been dropped by the top two teams. Finland's third at 3 minutes 36, whereas the Swedish side of Joachim Lundgren is fourth at nearly 6 minutes. Besides the national teams, there are the club squads. For the most part, they are made up of mates who've come to the 6 days with a passion for the sport. Each team has its story, and the one that we're about to bring you merits a detour.
Pas mal parce qu'aujourd'hui il est plus difficile qu'hier. Il a beaucoup de trous et j'adore que aïe aïe aïe.
They are, in fact, added up their ages to name their team 120. A trio of wily veterans with literally thousands of miles logged and just a touch of Bohemia. Among the three, Stefano Passeri, Mario Rinaldi and Giovanni Sala, 11 world championships. In the paddock, you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who doesn't know these three amigos.
Il motoclub Lumezzane per cui
Giovanni Sala here saying, well, first off, the Lumezzane Motor Club had a project to enter a team next year, but they also thought it was a good idea to come to Slovakia as a test to see how to organise such a big task. So we're here with an eye towards next year in New Zealand, that's the idea, and we're here in training mode.
Qui è un rodaggio.
Mario Rinaldi said, well, I've known Stefano for years. We're almost neighbours. We raced together in the juniors with Gio. We began our professional careers together at KTM, and we're linked by friendship, so I consider it to be a fraternity. And they don't need to be forced to pose together. There you have it, the years that they've shared together. Their friendship stood the test of time, even when they battled for world championships. The link that unites these three Italian enduro superstars remains unbreakable.
Credo che l'enduro sia.
Well, I believe that enduro has a way of making friendships. You run alone against the clock and the others do the same. You must take care of your resources, manage the bike and be able to finish the race despite your physical fatigue, as well as the mental side and psychology. I think that because each of us has lived this, it brought us together because of our passion for this sport.
E quindi questa cosa qua penso che ci avvicini e ci faccia comprendere quanto siamo tutti appassionati di questo sport.
Sicuramente gli voglio bene.
And a little bit of sentimentality from Gio Sala there. Really two exceptional guys. I love you, Rinaldi. I love you, Passeri. Well, obviously, the three Italians are dominating their category. In the near future, they will renew the experience in New Zealand in 2006. And their longer-term future, whether it's on a bike or not, seems to be quite promising.
If
I imagine my life down the road, I'll be with Mario and Gio. We'll be in a bar having a few beers and a few laughs. For day 3 of the event, the survivors set off on a new course. The new route is the same one used for the 2001 Slovakian Grand Prix. For all the riders, it is vital they check out the new stages. The competitors head into the unknown, and it's a new round that begins. Since the breakup of the Czech Republic, a new sporting rivalry was born between the Czech Republic and Slovakia. Within the 6-day competition, the two countries battled ferociously amongst themselves on Slovakian soil, but many Czech fans have crossed the friendly border to support their side. At the end of day one, the Czech Republic had the upper hand, but on day two, Slovakia were ahead. On day three, it was the Czech Republic pulling ahead in this two-country affair to sit 7th overall, just 4 seconds ahead of Slovakia in 8th. The local Slovak contingent was led by Eastern European Enduro standout Jaroslav Katranek. Competing in Enduro 2, Katranek had a difficult second day with mechanical problems, and day 3 wasn't that much better. Things were more upbeat in the Czech camp following charismatic leader Bohumil Poletny, Roman Michalak, and he showed his competitiveness. Michalak's part of the TM World Championship team and is the best enduro rider in the Republic. Poland's hopes for a strong ISDE came to an end after both Marek and Pavel Swiderski were forced to retire. A shame, because riders such as Mikael Schuster and Bartosz Zablucki had definitely added a bit of much-needed punch to the team. Yeah, this isn't hindering Zablucki from competing for individual honours in Enduro 1. Continuing their quest for the win, Italy added a bit more to their trophy lead. The Squadra Azzurra were able to add 33 seconds to their advantage. In Enduro 1, Alessandro Bellometti had an excellent day 3. The switch from a 1.25 two-stroke to the new 250cc four-stroke posed ne'er a problem. In Enduro 3, Alexandri was also surprising. He was able to remain in contact with David Knight in finishing second in the class. Like in the WEC, in the ISDE, there are 3 categories. Each day the winner is considered to have set the time of 0. For the others, the gap from the best time is established. Thus, Zani conceded just 35 seconds. He said, well, I'm very happy. All the specials went well. The times are good. The 6 days have so far gone really well. France, second in the trophy standings, are keeping one eye perched on the skies with the likelihood of rain for the second half of the ISDE. The French have always been specialists on slippery turf, so whilst waiting for the deluge, they continue to impress. Even though they have no room for error, after losing Raphael Andre, they're giving Italy a run for their money. Whilst Jourdain Coulibaly regularly drops 90 seconds per day in Enduro 2, Marc Germain continues to dominate Enduro 1 with another win. Emmanuel Albapar is also turning heads with his results against the elite of the sport.
C'est pas qu'on sent plus de pression, mais on sent qu'on a
saying, well, being that there isn't any more pressure, we know we have no room for a mistake. As soon as someone makes a big mistake, it's going to be costly. So at the moment, we're having to pay real attention.
Faut plus s'appliquer, quoi.
Well, day 3 was a miserable one for the Finns. As they were making inroads on the deficit, the defending champions suffered a blow when their only rider in Enduro 3, Marko Takala, retired. On today's world scene, Takala's the only rider capable of threatening the supremacy of David Knight. Victim of a very heavy crash, the young Finn is totally stunned. Shaken up, he's in no shape to compete the next day. A serious knock on the head for Takala and his teammates. So a quick look at the trophy standings at the halfway stage. Italy lead ahead of France and Finland, followed by Sweden and then Great Britain. In the junior division then, contrary to the Nations Trophy, the positions are not as close. Italy lead with a comfortable 1 minute 35 second margin from France, who look to be the lone challenger. The French boys have their backs up against the wall after losing Sébastien Denis in Enduro 3. From this point forward, there's no room for error. Finland are more than 5 minutes 30 adrift, and it looks like they'll be running on to hold for third ahead of Sweden in fourth and Australia in fifth. Day 4 of the ISDE, and as you can see, the rain's arrived. At the day's end, the competitors will have covered 1,000 kilometres in 80 editions. The 6 days has always been a major reliability test for the constructors. The gaps between the nations are beginning to gain importance. We haven't as yet mentioned Portugal, who are currently in 9th place, just behind the major Enduro countries. Regular viewers of the WAC already know Helder Rodrigues. The Gazgaz rider is a regular fixture amongst the Enduro elite. However, a Portuguese competitor less known is Paulo Goncalves. He's one of the country's best Enduro specialists. Now Belgium, Hungary and Austria are currently in the tail end of the standings. Belgium sit in 12th, which is rather disappointing considering the quality and quantity of their riders. Only Thierry Klutz and Jean-François Goulet, who are regular competitors in the French Enduro Championship and occasional participants on the world level, are riding to their potential. Now Hungary are down in 13th. No one knows much about the Hungarian Enduro racing, but the team certainly deserves to be here, and they are showing their prowess over the 6 days. The Germans are in 14th. The German squad lost their second rider on day 4 and their trophy aspirations. Ever since the death of Sven Endelin in Poland in 2004, the federation hasn't been able to find a new leader. Only Marcus Kerr in Enduro 3 has been able to run with the best European riders. The battle for the lead is on the boil with a new challenge, a light rain. The riders slow their pace because of the course has become dangerously slippery, and at the same time the checkpoints are a lot tighter. 5 or 6 minutes to catch a breath. Take care of a few natural need or two, have a drink and grab a bite to eat. All those important details can make a difference, but at the same time, 5 minutes remain short.
The track is quite slippery because in the mountain there is rain now, so I hope it stays there, not come in the special test.
Rickard Larsson is a fan of wet weather enduro, but it's not necessarily the same case with his teammates. Whilst Bjorn Karlsson and Niklas Gustafsson had a strong day, the rest of the team were clearly off song. On day 4, Sweden dropped nearly 2 minutes, but remain in 4th place. Despite the absence of Marko Tikala, Finland are running to form. The 2004 ISDE champions are showing what won them last year's competition as the second half of the event is well underway. Samuliaro and Petri Pajamo, both in Enduro 2, are the centerpieces of the Finnish squad. Aro took second in class, dropping just 17 seconds to Stefan Merriman, and Pajamo is third, 22 seconds adrift of the Australian. Still second overall, France are beginning to lose ground. The gap from provisional leader Italy now stands at more than 3 minutes, and the gap from third place Finland's becoming somewhat precarious at 30 seconds. After having got off to the perfect start here in Slovakia, the French team's having a tough time following the pace of their trans-Alpine rivals. Unfortunately, the win for Marc Germain in Enduro 1 isn't enough to make any headway because the gaps in the three classes are very little. It's Italy who now seem to be unstoppable. Since the start of the hostilities, the Italians have run trouble-free. While individually they have just one victory from Simone Albergoni, there isn't much worth mentioning except their spot on strategy of running consistently. Alexander Bocciuri said, well, we're having a great 6 days so far. Everyone's running strong. Bellametti, Albergoni, myself, Zani, Paoli and Falgari. After 4 days, we have a clear advantage. 2 days remain, and I hope we can take the trophy home.
Domani, dopodomani, di riuscire a portare a casa questo trofeo.
And it's status quo with the juniors. The under-23 Italian squad leads the way ahead of France and Finland. Whilst there's a clear gap in the Nations Trophy, the individual competition's far from decided. Marc Germain sits atop the Enduro 1 order, but it's under threat from Simone Albergoni, who's a mere 13 seconds adrift in second. In Enduro 2, Stefan Merriman sits comfortably in the lead with nearly 2 minutes in hand from Petri Pajamo, whilst in Enduro 3 no one has anything for David Knight, who stretched his lead to nearly 3 minutes from Italy's Alexander Zani. Well, we could have taken an interest in any of the club teams, and yet we chose one that's certainly not the most competitive. They're floundering near the bottom of the standings, but we decided to visit the Swedish lineup because behind the press plates and behind the helmets, there are ladies concealed.
We decided in June. Wasn't it June?
Yes.
So we just have 2 months to work.
2 months of preparations.
Yes.
Our team boss want us to go next year on New Zealand. And then it wasn't so much travel to get here, so we decided to. And then it was so boring, so I started riding in the wood.
Same with me. My father races or used to race, and so I started as well.
I haven't been riding for so long, but it was my boyfriend who asked me to try, and I liked it.
It was my father too.
I think the only thing that's easier for us is to get help. In the hills. But sometimes if I'm stuck or something, they just look at me and they don't want to help me. Then they see I'm a girl, they come run to help me. But I think that's the only.
Yeah, I think so too.
Only thing
It's easier. Yes.
It's easier.
Well, what a surprise we chose that team to focus on. The Swedish lasses held their own until the 5th day of the event. All throughout the ISDE, their presence has added that little something extra in the Enduro paddock. Is the macho world of motorcycle races changing? And to see it is a fact that encourages everyone. Day 5 of 6, and the riders don't always go where they want. A deluge has fallen over Povazska Bystrica and the ISDE. The conditions have been somewhat apocalyptic, and the word in Enduro has never been more appropriate. Within the encouragement of the 85,000 strong public, some would have great difficulty in making it to the end of the day. that was a great sight. But anyway, up ahead, the rain's completely changed the hierarchy in France, who were praying for the arrival of the rain, are beginning to make up some lost ground. The 3-minute lead that Italy had is melting like ice under the hot sun. The French, though, would be stopped dead in their tracks. Damien Miguel in Enduro 1, the first to retire with injury. At the first checkpoint, he shows the cries of pain, and he has no choice but to stop. And as misery often comes in pairs, Marc Germain's also forced to call an end to his ISDE. The leader in Enduro 1 suffers a mechanical problem. The problem is found, but it's too late, and Germain can forget about any individual honours. For the French team, the ISDE is over. But just as the Italians begin to think the title's theirs, Finland begin to make their comeback, and they need not look any further than the amazing day put in by Mika Aola. The Husqvarna rider wins in Enduro 1, taking 1 minute 53 from the best Italian rider. The Finns are worried about the mud, but they're still making themselves a serious challenger.
Also, we had some problems, like Aaro and Pohjamo, they stuck in the enduro test and lost very much time, and so without problems can be very tight with the Italy team.
For Italy, day 5 was an absolute disaster. Lead riders Simone Albiconi and Alessandro Bellametti each dropped 1 minute 53 seconds. Alex Zani was 3 minutes 13 seconds off the best time in Enduro 3. And as for wildcard rider Giuliano Falgari, he was more than 8 minutes behind the winner in Enduro 2. There was also a dramatic change in the individual standings. In Enduro 1, Poland's Bartosz Obluki moved into the overall lead. And in the 252-stroke, 454-stroke Enduro 2 category, Stefan Merriman's still the leader, despite the winning performance on day 5 of Paul Edmondson, who was right at home in these conditions.
Yeah, finally, I've been waiting all week, and finally happened on the 5th day, but a little bit late, but it was good fun today.
Right, it was another perfect run for David Knight in Enduro 3. The Englishman is aiming not only for the class win, but the overall for the 3 categories. The heroes of the day are not those riders representing the top Enduro countries, but rather all those anonymous competitors that make up the folklore of the ISDE.
Je m'excuse au beau caméraman.
Yes, Thierry Clut saying, I'd like to apologise to the cameraman. It was me. I did that. I want to say I'm sorry on behalf of all of Belgium. It was not very nice. For once, the cameraman was filming us, though. If one wants to go look for a hero amongst all the heroes, perhaps it's the American Jeff Fredette. 47 years of age, he's taking part in his 25th ISDE.
It's just something I like to do. It's you know, it's 25 or something, you know, when you first start doing it, it's just like I did, the first time I wanted to do it, it's just because I seen the movie on any Sunday, and 6 days looks like fun, you know, so you go to 1 and then you go to 2, and then all of a sudden you're gone to too many.
Jeff Fredette's memories of the ISDE can be seen both in his eyes and arms, as can be seen in all the competitors during the night of day 5, the evening before the final day of competition. Well, the ISDE has its traditions, and day 6 doesn't start off yet with the motocross final. The 272 remaining riders first have to put in a few kilometers of a liaison section before arriving at the Sveverepec International Motocross Circuit. The Enduro ones have the honour of starting off first. Sweden's Rickard Larsson gets the whole shot just behind the TM riders, Roman Michalik from the Czech Republic and Poland's Povazska Bystrica. Whilst the riders put great importance on winning the motocross final, it's the culminative time that counts. In the battle for the Nations Trophy, pitting Italy against Finland, the Italians got off to a great start with Bellometti in 4th place and Albiconi in 8th. As for the Finns, Silman's running 2nd, but his teammate Mika Ahola messed up the start. Ahola's far behind in the pack and cost his team 1 minute and 5 seconds.
I get a bad start and then so much mud I couldn't see anything. It was really difficult.
Finland lost some 10 seconds in this race. Their deficit now 1 minute. Up front, Rickard Larsson shows off some previously unknown motocross skills on his way to the win. Povazska Bystrica posts a 5th place result, and he's going to take the individual title in Enduro 1 as a consequence. In Enduro 2, Samuliaro and Jari Mattila for Finland, Alex Botturi and Giuliano Falgari for Italy. But it was Paul Edmondson getting the whole shot, followed by Kurt Caselli and Samuliaro. Aro jumped straight away into the lead ahead of Caselli and Edmondson, behind Emmanuel Albepar, taking a heavy spill when losing his accelerator. The Italians are struggling. Alex Botturi's in 10th place. Finland was in the midst, running away when Mattila was severely shaken up upon landing on a jump. Aro ran away from the rest of the field, but precious seconds were lost with Mattila's misadventure, and that cost Finland time they couldn't afford to lose. It was Stefan Merriman who went on to win the Enduro 2 individual title. Tani and Paoli's times would make or break the nation. Vita Kuklik got the best start, but almost immediately David Knight made his way past and began his run away from the rest of the Enduro 3 field. Knight, who's been nearly unbeatable this year in the WEC, went on for the individual Enduro 3 win, but also the overall victory for the 3 different classes. The win in Slovakia is his first world title to join his already impressive record book. For the former 500cc motocross rider Alex Zani, this particular race is no problem. He stays in contact with Knight. The worried Italian team keeps wide-eyed on Alex Paoli's time. In finishing, the TM rider gives the Italian squad the World Team Championship.
Io sono partito un po' peggio.
Here's Alessio Paoli saying, I started off a bit behind, there was some dirt in my visor and I couldn't see anything. But after it began to work out and I could see that everything was going okay, these 6 days are really demanding, right up until the very end.
Oggi era una giornata speciale.
Alessandro Bellometti said, well, today was very special. We could have easily lost a 1, and happily we came out on top. And Simone Albigoni said, I'm so happy we came here to win the team title. I think we deserved it because of our domination in the competition, so it's an immense satisfaction. In the final Nations Trophy standings, Finland finished 2nd, followed by Sweden, Great Britain. A noteworthy result is the 6th place of the host Slovakia. In the second half of the table is the United States, a decimated France, whose final position was of no significance. In the junior competition, matters were not as close because from the very first days the gaps were substantial between the countries. Defending champions Finland had to settle for third place despite all the hard work of team leader Valtteri Salonen. France finished in second, reduced to just 3 riders. The young French lads had to compete for 4 days without a wild card and with plenty of adversity. An added reward to Julien Dubac, who won in the motocross. But as was the case with the team competition, the Italian juniors are dominated head and shoulders above the rest at the ISDE. They won for 7 minutes ahead of France, Micheluz, Piavanni, Bernardi and Becconi, giving it all over the 6 days. And Sweden finished 4th, with Slovakia taking 5th, but it was the Italians who had reason to celebrate once again. So, with the triple taking the trophy, the junior and club titles, Italy definitely stamped their authority on this, the 80th edition of the ISDE, which was perhaps one of the best in terms of out-and-out competition since 2001 at Brive. The 81st and next edition of the 6 days will be held in New Zealand in 2006. On the other side of the planet, Italy will have the chance to defend their crown against the best nations in the world and will have the chance to write a new page in the history of the ISDE. But for now, it's goodbye.